Hi everyone, so for this video we have a writing question. Now remember, for these ones we don't really know very much just by looking at the question because the question is very generic. So we just have to look at the passage and our answer choices in order to figure out what sort of rules, what sort of context we're looking at in order to answer the question. So let's take a look. All right, so we have our generic question here, but looking at our answer choices, what do we notice about these? What do they all have in common? So these all are just different forms of the same verb, right? So we're talking about the verb claim, and then we just have a bunch of different choices here about the tense and all that good stuff. So when we think about verb, we want to think about verb agreement, which means that the verb needs to agree with the subject in both number and sometimes gender, and then also in tense. So we need to match the tense of the rest of the passage. So let's take a look at this passage here and see what we can pick out about those things. So in 1637, the price of tulips skyrocketed in Amsterdam, with single bulbs of rare varieties selling for up to the equivalent of $200,000 in today's US dollars. Some historians blank that this tulip mania was the first historical instance of an asset bubble, which occurs when investors drive prices to highs not supported by actual demand. Okay, so the first thing we need to figure out is what the subject of this verb would be in order to think about singular versus plural. So we have right before this verb is some historians. So some historians is definitely going to be the subject of this verb. So we need to make sure that that matches in that sense. Now we need to think about the tense. It looks like for these choices, a lot of this question is based on the tense itself as opposed to anything else. So let's think about the tense of this passage for a second. So we're talking about 1637 and the price of tulips skyrocketed in that year. So talking about the past a little bit, but then when we're talking about historians, that would be in the present. Because we're trying just, some historians are, saying this. So it's not necessarily indicating that the historians are saying these things in the past, but it's just something that they currently believe, which is that this was the first historical instance of an asset bubble. So looking at our choices here, we need to keep those things in mind. So let's see what our options are. So let's see. So let's just go through our options. So we have some historians, claiming. So some historians claiming that this tulip mania was the first historical cause of an asset bubble. So see, we kind of are left with a question here. So by having this verb tense as claiming, we are expecting almost like a contrast to come after. Some historians claiming that this tulip mania was the first historical instance did this, kind of a cause and effect sort of thing. But we don't really know essentially what the subject of this claiming is because we don't know what it is that's happening. So we can get rid of A. Then we have B. So some historians claim that this tulip mania was the first historical instance of an asset bubble. Right, so this one sounds pretty good. Just a straight up present tense here. Some historians claim. We know that we're definitely talking about the historians here. It matches the subject in number. Historians is plural, and this verb is plural as well. It's in the present as we want, so this seems like a great option, but let's just check with our other choices. So C, having claimed. So this one, we already know that this part of the passage is in present tense, and having claimed would be in the past, so we can get rid of C. Then we have D, to claim. So some historians to claim that this tulip mania. So to claim is going to be in the infinitive here. And that wouldn't make sense because it comes right after a subject, so we do want that verb to match the subject in both number and gender, not in this case, but agreement here is very important, and to claim does not agree because it's an infinitive form. So in that case, it doesn't have to agree with anything because it's the infinitive itself. But we do not want it to be in the infinitive form for this passage, this example here. So we can get rid of D, and that leaves us with B.